So today it's a little bit warmer than it was the last time you joined me. Got a little bit more pruning to do. Gonna get busy with this one right here. As you can see, it has some overgrownness here. The ultimate goal here is to get this cleaned up and trimmed back for the 2019 year growth. All new growth occurs on any of the new growth there. Grapes do not produce on old vines. That's why we prune, just in case you're wondering. So if you didn't join us, I'll put a link down below to the what we could call part 1 if you want. But what I'm doing here is basically removing all growth, and I keep a watchful eye for the buds. So here's a bud and here's a bud. You can see it joins like that. That will create a new growth this year, and it'll create a shoot just like these. And out of those, however many you leave will help you forecast how big your crop's going to be for the 2019 year, or whatever year you're pruning for. Most people, and I've been trained to do this, I'm a hobbyist, but I've been trained, most people leave 2 buds. This late in the season, you're pretty safe. You could go back to 1 bud if you want. Bud mortality due to frost, late frost, is always a risk. But in here, what I'm going to do is trim these things back, and the more experience you get, the quicker you can go. So here's some of this out of the way here so we can focus in on what we're doing here. So you don't want to leave too many nodes. Here's why. If you leave more nodes, that means your fruit is probably going to be a smaller grapes. Lots of clusters, smaller grapes. The fewer that you have, the fewer you have. And that's why they say go with about 2, leaving 2 so you get that new growth from those 2 buds. That way you have fewer grape clusters, but the grapes are bigger. I did an experiment last year, and it's so true. On the vines that we've already pruned over there, they outperform these first 2 rows on this side that I'm working on right now. And they did that because I didn't prune these back as aggressively as I could have, but I wanted to see, had to live through it my own self. I didn't want to listen to anybody in a book or anything like that. So I lived, I learned, the book is correct. So you can live vicariously through me, or if you get your own vineyard or have your own vineyard and you try this, give it a shout. Leave it down in the comments. What's your experience when you're pruning? How many nodes do you leave? What kind is your crop? Any kind of correspondence like that's really cool. The vines that I've got here is 150. Some of them are a little bit more immature. The ones behind us way back here are still really low. The way I planted these was non-traditional. I didn't create big, deep, earth-turned channels for them to grow in. I actually drilled holes with a post hole digger, and it creates a slower growth. But I wasn't in that big of a hurry, so I wanted it in phases. I got the first 2 rows established. The next rows we'll have another project, hopefully this spring into summer, working to complete the trellis system. So I've got all of the end posts in right now, and I have to set these posts, and when setting those, I'll show you how I make this standard H bracket here, using the metal here, use metal stakes in between to hold them and establish it, and then I run this single high wire cordon. That's just what works for me. I like it because I'm usually working up here. I'm not bent over down here on the ground like some people in the old days would plant in a fence row or something like that. That's back-breaking work. So you gotta work smarter, not harder. I'm all about that. So let me do some more pruning here, and I'll move the camera down a little bit more. Show you the next, what we've got going on here. All of the cuttings that come off of here, all of them get removed from the vineyard. Sometimes I give them to people who are hobbyists that like to make different things like wreaths or whatever. Otherwise, I typically burn them, so that way you don't have to worry about reintroducing any kind of disease that may have been there in the past years. So a single vine in the state of Missouri, this one here, should produce, if pruned properly like it is, it should, on a good year, produce 5 to 7 pounds of grapes. 5 to 7 pounds of grapes. That looks like you're at about, once they're cleaned, that's basically a batch. So 5 to 7 pounds, a batch of grape jelly. So if you're doing pint jars, you're going to get 4 to 6 pints out of a vine, and that's a good rule of thumb to be thinking about it at. what I'll do is I'll come back, make sure that I've got everything covered, pruned up the way I like it, and make sure I didn't miss anything, and then I will be ready for the buds to pop out, which if we look real close, we can see some of the buds are already starting to pop here. So I don't know if you're zooming or not. Those little rascals are buds right there. Hopefully you can see that. So bud break will be coming very soon, and I will be finishing up the next row hopefully tomorrow night if it doesn't rain, and then finishing cleaning up the ones that are on the ground down there that were still being groomed to grow. They get pruned back very aggressively, and as I make the rest of the trellis systems, that'll come to life. And hope you enjoyed the video today. Press subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll be notified for our next videos.